Hello again, Luke Bug, the Geek of Steel here, and this is episode 77 of the Podcast of Steel, and this one is my spoiler-free review of Matt Reeves' The Batman. I've got notes on my screen, I've got notes in my trusty Daily Planet planner, I've got a head filled with thoughts that I need to get out, whether it be on paper, on screen, into a microphone. The time is 9:15 on Wednesday the 9th of February. And yesterday I went to London to see this film. It was a very last minute and very hush-hush. When it comes to events like this, there is a lot of serious paperwork involved and agreements and signatures. And I was very honoured to be asked by Warner Brothers UK to be invited to a special screening of The Batman. So you may have noticed on my social media pages, The Geek of Steel, that I shared some photographs of the Batman Oreo poster, which was amazing. So were the cookies. This is not a sponsored podcast, but Oreo, if you are listening, hello. Slide in to the DMs, that's what people say. But I went there to see the poster, but I went there to also see this film that the world has waited for such a long time. The last few years have felt difficult. It's been a struggle. It's been a long time for everything, and it felt that this film would never come out, but it is coming out very soon. March the 4th and March the 1st in some IMAX screens. So Warner Brothers invited me there early to see this film so that I could prepare my review and also, fingers crossed, speak with the director, Matt Reeves, at a roundtable event. So that's not yet happened, and hopefully it does happen very soon, because it's another thing that I'm so excited about. So stay tuned, because I will be sharing that interview if it happens. Let's be positive. When it happens, I will be sharing that interview. But here I'm going to be talking about the film and the way it has left me. The absolute experience of seeing this film in a cinema was one of my favorite experiences. And I'm going to be talking about the music, the cast, the action, the costume, the fighting, the directing, everything without spoiling too much, because there are huge spoilers in this film. Huge spoilers. So please, I'm begging you to stay off the internet for the first few days in March, because there's going to be spoilers. So, mute the hashtags and words that you need to mute. Stay off social media pages until you can see this movie, because there are some people in the world that want to spoil it. They want to be the first person to get online and talk about what happens and who says what and who does what to whom. But my advice is to just see this film as soon as possible and make up your own opinions. I've said that in the past as well. The most important review that you can read is your own, in a way. You are your most important critic. And for me, I love talking about films. I love seeing films. I get lost in movies and TV shows. And some of the other people that were there yesterday, they mentioned the fact that I was a little bit over animated. So if you are watching this on YouTube, hello, I'm waving to you. I might jitter about all over the place when talking about this film. I've got a massive glass of water here. I can't be drinking caffeine today because it will send me over the edge when talking about this film. But let's just get into it. Let's just talk about what I love so much and what has stayed with me. And first of all, from the moment that film starts, you are in the movie. There's lots of POV shots. There's lots of ways in which the camera angles make you feel that you are in crime scenes. It makes you feel that you are on rooftops. It makes you feel like you are, in some scenes, flying through the air, and you are in these fights. And I will talk about the fights in a moment because wow. But let's just talk about the main man, Robert Pattinson, Batman, Bruce Wayne. He was phenomenal in this. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, in the past, I've tried, it's difficult to choose a favourite Superman because it changes from time to time. But I love them all because they've all continued to tell my hero's story. Same goes with Batman. I grew up with Keaton, and Kilmer, and I enjoyed Christian Bale. I love what Ben Affleck has done for the Batman world. Pattinson is going to be remembered as an amazing Batman. And people are going to love his Bruce Wayne. They're going to love this version, and it is an early version. Again, this is 2 years into him being Vengeance, being the Batman. And we see him make mistakes. We see him learn from his mistakes. We see him evolve, both as a vigilante and as a friend, as a companion, as a partner in some scenes. But when we first see Batman and Bruce Wayne in different scenes, they're both very, very different. And we know how Batman became Batman. We don't need to see that version of his parents being shot and murdered, or that awful night, because we know that it's happened. It is addressed in the film, but we don't have it sort of shoved down our throat in a way. We get to see Batman in his second year, making a name for himself, as it were, working with the police reluctantly in some situations, working for himself, working with Alfred. I'm seeing things in my head right now and remembering certain scenes, but his scenes with Commissioner Gordon were just not... Well, there were a few quiet scenes, and there were a few funny scenes, and there were a few tense scenes, but the relationship that we see with James Gordon and Batman is equally as important as to the relationship that we see evolve between Batman and Catwoman, Selina Kyle. And Zoe Kravitz was incredible. So much sass, so much courage and tenacity. We see them obviously a lot together. When we see them fight together, when we see them fight each other, when we see them talk with each other, everything seems to be a dance between the two of them. Even when we see them on their motorbikes, zipping through the streets of Gotham, there is a rhythm to their movements and to their dialogue and to their action. And it's magical to see those two perform on screen together, doing that. And this review is probably going to be me like going all over the place and talking about one thing, then talking about another. When it comes to this film, Matt Reeves has created something that has got so much going on, but you understand everything that is happening at the same time. He is very clever with the pacing and the writing and how things get revealed at the right time in perfect order. And this review won't be like that. This review is going to be me just gushing about why I enjoyed this film so much and just cannot wait to see it again. But Robert as Batman was amazing. We've seen that scene so many times now where he's in the subway fighting this, classic thug gang, and just goes to town on one particular guy and says, "I am vengeance." That scene is exciting to see just in the trailer, but watching that scene on the big screen and hearing every single punch hit and seeing that suit come out of the dark and seeing this Batman emerge and knowing that the next few moments are going to be exciting was just so much fun. and the suit. I wish I sat in the front row so I could get a closer look at it. But I've talked about not picking favourites, but I adore this suit. It's in its early days. I keep saying that it's its second year, so this suit clearly has had some trial and error. But you can see the stitching on it. And the cowl, I think, is my favourite cowl. It's almost, it looks like a skull. You can see indentations around his temple. The ears are just right. The eyes are just right. The facial expressions with his open chin and mouth work so well. And yes, we see some variations of the suit throughout the movie. We see some absolutely amazing gadgets from Batman. His suit literally is a Swiss Army knife. It can do it all. But the fighting, the hand-to-hand combat that we see Batman do is crazy good. Now, it's a 15 in the UK, so it's going to be, there is a higher rating for this movie because there are scenes of absolute terror, and it's scary, it's chilling. And I'll get to those moments why in a moment without spoiling it. But the fighting that we see, the takedowns, it's like the Arkham games. It's that moment of being in the moment where Batman is surrounded by thugs, yet he seems to take them down effortlessly whilst also taking a few blows. He's not perfect. He's not got superpowers. He can't be everywhere at the same time. But in that moment where he's taking on so many people in one scene, there's a lot of people, we see him fight like we haven't seen a Batman fight before, I feel. And I could have seen a lot more of that. It's a 3-hour-long movie. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of content in there. But those fighting scenes, when we get to see the suit in action, when we get to see Robert in action, are some of the most exciting scenes I've seen in a comic book film for quite some time. And wow. Yeah, probably at some point I'm going to feel that I would announce the fact that he is my new favourite Batman for now, because what he has done with this role and how he has taken on this role so well. And I've watched his interviews over the years because I've followed his work. And sometimes he's even admitted to doing this, that he's made up answers in interviews where he's just sort of maybe gotten a little bit bored with the whole marketing campaign. And he's made up lies about how he has taken on roles. But I truly hope that people get to interview Robert Pattinson and he gives some honest answers about how he felt when not only he first saw himself in the suit, but how he created this interpretation of Batman and made it his own, because he truly has. This is a Batman that we have never seen before, and I can't wait for the world to see it. And just before I go on to talk about Selina next, I think it's my favourite Batmobile. I think it is. The scene in the trailers that we've seen with Penguin in the car with the explosion behind him, that is just a millisecond of what we actually get to see in that action scene. And goodness gracious me, it was good. I was all over the place when that was happening. And to see the Batmobile in that moment, to hear it, when you hear it for the first time, my goodness gracious. That is what I'm looking forward to seeing most, I think, in an IMAX screening, is to hear and feel that moment. We get to see the Batmobile emerge from the darkness, and we hear that engine. We hear the mechanics of it all. And, oh, it's an amazing car. It's an amazing moment. And the Batmobile deserves an epic moment, and we got that with it. And, yeah, fantastic stuff. My head is starting to spin again. Right, Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle / Catwoman. absolutely magical. There is sass there, there's raw emotion, there's humour, there's care, and we get to see all elements of Selena's personality throughout the movie. And yet she still leaves you wanting more. We see her evolve, as well as we see Batman evolve as a character. Her costume, her acting, her movements, her fighting in the film was amazing as well. We know over the years they've had serious chemistry. But what we see in this movie from their first moment throughout, it's like a dance. The dialogue, the movements, the fighting, just their motions play with each other. And there's a moment when they're both riding their bikes through the very wet and gritty streets of Gotham. But even that is like a ballet when we see them intertwine with each other and they're both testing each other's limits. Their relationship, their, let's say, romance in the film is just another part of this movie that makes it so enjoyable and takes you a little bit deeper into the story. And seeing these two together and those two suits, Catwoman's suit is amazing. And when we see that work together with Batman's suit, it is so much fun. Zoe Kravitz did that. She did an amazing job. An amazing job. Well, we know that the Riddler is the villain in this film, and what a villain he is. Paul Dano is scary. Another fantastic actor, but we don't see his face that much in the film. And when we do, it seems to be even more hard-hitting than when we see him in his like own made costume. As villains go, this is one of the most dastardly and evil villains I have seen in a Batman film, in a Bond movie, in any sort of movie where you know instantly, okay, that's the person we are not supposed to support. This is the person that is the bad guy. This is the villain. This is the guy that we should be booing at whenever we see him on the screen. He's not likable. We don't really feel any compassion for him when we find out why he's doing the things that he's doing. And the things that he's doing, wow, pretty much one of the reasons why this film has got a high rating. But his moments when we see him talk to the camera, it's like he's talking directly to you. You can feel just everything on the back of your neck spike up when we hear him talk about what he plans to do and why he's doing it and why he needs to be heard. I can't get his voice out of my head as the Riddler. And his riddles and his process of giving Batman more tasks to solve is brilliant. And I want to see more of that. But I knew whenever I saw him on the screen or hear his voice or see what he was planning next, I felt uneasy. I felt a little bit cold. It's a fantastic villain. A truly great evolution from the first time we see him throughout. It's just brilliant. And to see the Riddler evolve as the Batman evolves as well throughout this film, the character development between those two is just as powerful as that between Batman and Catwoman. We see them both get to know each other more. And yes, clearly, as the film goes, Batman gets more feelings for Selina, but the more Batman finds out more about the Riddler, the more we see Batman like become Batman. And it was brutal. And I want to see that more again as well. Who else can we talk about? Okay. Colin Farrell. Ferocious. We haven't really seen much of Colin Farrell in the trailers. We've seen that moment where he's in the car and there's explosions, but we get to see more of Oswald Cobblepot in the Penguin Club, in his element, in the underbelly of Gotham, being a mob, being a bad guy, being this disfigured, just very unruly character. And he was fantastic in this role. Colin Farrell is a handsome dude. And to see him like this, to see his face, to see his scars, to see him walk with a limp, to see his rage come out of nowhere is brilliant. And yes, he's got this deep sort of New York accent. And it reminded me a lot of Robert De Niro in The Untouchables, when we see that moment where he lets loose and goes very, very violent and very, very angry and can turn in an absolute instant. And we see that a few times in the movie. And a brilliant interpretation of the Penguin. So good. There's a lot of humour that we get to see. Most of the humour in the film, I feel, comes from the villains, especially the Penguin. And Colin Farrell was absolute, just, it was a joy to watch whenever he was on the screen. You knew there was either going to be action, chaos, or laughs. And we get all of that from Colin Farrell's performance. Who else? Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. And big Andy fan. And this version of Alfred is caring. He's patient. He is strict. He's a very good Alfred. Very good Alfred. We see many sides of him. And again, it's another relationship that we see in the film between him and Bruce in those quiet moments, alone in Wayne Manor. And the sets is what I will talk about in a moment. If you're watching this, don't let me forget to talk about the sets. I'm not sure how, this is pre-recorded, but the moments we see when it's Alfred and Bruce together, whether it's Bruce coming home late at night or Alfred waking him up in the morning, they're tender, they're emotional, and it's raw. It's not the relationship that we've really seen between Bruce Wayne and Alfred before in the movies. They've always been quite, well, they've been bonded for a while. This is, again, only 2 years in. In the other movies, it's Alfred has known Bruce as Batman for a long, long time. In this film, it's still a bit, they're still unsure about each other in a way, but their moments throughout the movie were fantastic. Again, there was some humour in there as well for good measure. And I really enjoyed those scenes as Andy Serkis. And he looked brilliant. He's still got that classic look of having a butler's uniform, as it were. But he still looks like he could take you out. He's still obviously got that military training in him. And he is still there to protect Bruce Wayne, as he promised Bruce's father. And that emotional bond between the two shows throughout the film. Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon. Brilliant. Love the moustache. Love the grit. They've got a few hilarious scenes together. They've got a lot of action-packed scenes together. And again, it's another relationship in the film where we see two people go on a journey from the start to the finish. Commissioner Gordon is a huge part of the Batman universe, and Jeffrey Wright has done a beautiful job of being that guy behind the scenes that knows more than the other cops. He's the one that turns on the bat lamp and gets Batman's attention. He's not sure of what Batman is about, but still believes in him as this, I can almost say, like an icon in Gotham. He knows his potential. He sees his potential. And whenever they're together, it is fantastic. And yeah, it's a gritty cop. You know, one of these sort of ones that you would see in a classic 70s movie that is constantly on stakeouts and eating junk food and drinking too much coffee and is always tired. But he still brings so much energy to this role. And definitely in a tough situation, I would want James Gordon and Jeffrey Wright on my side and in my corner, because their relationship and together was a lot of fun. Who else can we talk about? Carmine Falcone. John Turturro. Where do I begin? Sinister does not even begin to cover it. Over the years, I like gangster movies. I like mob movies, whether they're set sort of, in the late 1800s with Gangs of New York, or The Untouchables, or Goodfellas, or Casino. Mob bosses are these characters that are just, there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of charm. There's a lot of unnervingness, because you don't know when they're going to snap. You don't know what they're capable of. They're always in these high ranking roles. They've got power, and they've got there by doing what needs to get done. And Carmine Falcone in this is brutal and scary and sinister, and again, another character that puts you on edge. And those scenes between him and the Penguin were amazing. And thinking about it, I'm going back and I'm laughing in my head, because I'm hearing the things that he says to Batman, and the things that he says to Catwoman, and the things that he just says to his thugs that are around him. He is another very good villain. It's hard to pick a favorite villain in this, because there are a few. And obviously the Riddler is the main one. And I think out of the villains in the film, the Riddler is my favorite, because of what he made me feel as an audience member, and the fact that I felt just weirded out by that persona. Paul Dano did an amazing job there, but wowzers. But pretty much every person that we see act in this film brings their A game. It could just be a cop who shares one line, or a child that looks to be, there's a child in it that doesn't actually say anything. And obviously Bruce relates himself to that child and what he has gone through. But every single actor and actress and performer in that movie just did an amazing job. And when you get to see this, you will understand why. But yeah, amazing stuff. What else have I got on my big list of notes here? Lots of notes everywhere. On the train home, I was just sort of writing everything and anything that I could get my mind into. So the music, we know there's lots of music in there. Lots and lots and lots of music. Nirvana, there's a Nirvana track. There's a lot of quiet music, especially Ave Maria. Don't worry, I won't sing it to you, but it's used a lot throughout the movie. And yes, we have heard those themes which just chill me to the core. We've heard the Batman theme, we've heard the Riddler theme. Catwoman's music, when we hear it, is beautiful. And I'm pretty sure through some of the scenes in the film, when we hear that, dum, dum, it matches the beat of your heart as you are watching the film. And at some point, my heart was beating very, very fast. And the music combined with that was just superb, fantastic stuff. Really took me out of the moment and made me feel part of this film. A new era of hero, for sure. I've got some more notes down here talking about it. Just the fact that when we see things for the first time, like I've already mentioned, like seeing the Batmobile, seeing the suit, seeing Batman fight just hordes of people is exciting. But I think it's my favorite Batmobile. I'm pretty sure it's my favorite Batmobile. Again, I love the suit because I love the cowl. It looks like a skull. You can see the stitching on it. You can see the detail in everything. And his suit is a Swiss Army knife. It does everything. It's got gadgets. It's got weapons. It's got things that remind me so much of the Arkham games. And that fighting and the takedowns. They've clearly gotten some inspiration from the Batman video games and what we've seen Batman do. And the surveillance, the gadgets, the contact lenses were amazing. What Batman can see through those and how he is clearly a very intelligent detective, but with the tools that he creates himself and the weapons that he makes, he is making himself not only a better vigilante, but a better detective with all these gadgets and all these. There are some that I don't want to mention because they are amazing. A scene that I really, really, really want to see again. We've seen some of these leaked shared by Warner Brothers online when he is on top of a roof. And it's the first time we've really seen him up high. You know, there's not that majestic pose where we see him on top of a gargoyle. A lot of the early scenes where we see Batman, he is in subways, he is in alleyways, he is underground, he is in the dark. He is hiding from the light. But there's one moment, as I said, where he's on a rooftop. And yeah, the crowd that watched the movie with me were very excited by that, and I cannot wait to see it again. The suit is just so good with not only the movements of how agile Batman is whilst wearing it, but he's also protected. We see that suit take so much damage. Bullets, bats, knives, debris, fire, explosions. That suit has gone through a lot, as does Batman. And we see him a few times take off the suit and we see the scars underneath him. There's one really great shot where he takes off the suit and takes off that mask and you see those black makeup eyes and you see the scars on his back. And it reminded me of the Alex Ross art where we see a very scarred Bruce Wayne's back. Now, some people said at the beginning when Pattinson was announced that he's too small to play Batman. He's not big enough. He's not huge. He's a big lad. And there is some definite work being put in for him to get this body. But his fighting especially is powerful. His stature is powerful. The sound of his boots walking along the floor fills you with dread. And there's a great part at the beginning of the movie where we see him sort of, as I say, emerge for the first time. And you see criminals look up to the sky and see that bat symbol in the clouds and how he wants to put fear into them. And you do feel it when you see this Batman come onto the screen. It's intimidating. I would not want to be a villain in Gotham. And Gotham, I've remembered to talk about it, Gotham is beautiful. Yes, it's dark, it's gritty, it's wet. It's not Metropolis. It's a town and a city that needs saving. It needs a savior. It needs the light to come out of the dark. And how that was filmed, it makes you feel like you are somebody that lives in Gotham and has had enough. You are just moments away from choosing the bad decision of choosing a life of crime or finding a substance to take you out of that moment and escape. And it is a magic interpretation of Gotham. But we see the grittiness of it, but also the beauty of how the rich live and how the privileged live in that town. Houses that look like cathedrals, and there's beautiful churches and palaces and offices that just I need to get the art book of this film so I can see where it was. I know a lot of it was filmed in Scotland, in some beautiful scenes towards the end of the movie. The third and final act, I'm not even going to mention because I need you to feel what I felt when I watched it for the first time. I think I held my breath for about half of an hour, for 30 minutes, because I was close to losing it. But yeah, just the locations in this movie, the sets that they have made. I think in my handy book of notes that I have by my side, $100 million budget. If that's the case, well done to that production team, the location scouts, the prop builders, because yes, a lot of this film is set in the dark. It's a Batman film. It's part of the rules, I'm sure. But when we see these buildings in the light of day and the detail in them as well, it is just absolutely stunning. But again, there are scary locations as well. Abandoned buildings that are just waiting for a jump scare, and factories and criminal clubs and the seedy underbelly of Gotham City. At one moment, you can't think Gotham can get any more criminal, and then it surprises you by giving you something else. Just like this film, there is constantly something else on the way to surprise you, to excite you, to intimidate you. I'm probably rambling already, but if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of this movie, and I cannot wait to see it again, whenever that may be. And really want to see it on an IMAX screen. Just want to see it again in a cinema. And I had this moment, and I watched Shazam, completely different film, in the theatre. I wanted to watch the audience react to certain scenes, and there's about 5 scenes in this movie where the audience that I was with, anyway, lost it in a big way. And I really hope that when this film gets released, the people that worked on it are able to not only enjoy the film as it is intended, but also see the way that the audience react to certain scenes. And my good friend Kibler was on one side and Paul from DC World was on the other. And at one moment in the film, when you see the film, you'll know why I did this. Kibler, bless him, I reached out and did that. And punched him right in the arm. Kibler, I know you're watching, and I apologise for that. I will be going on to the Brothers Geek Out podcast soon, and he will be coming on to this one to talk more about this movie. But it's just been an absolute joy to watch that. It was truly a new era of superhero movie. It's going to be a big year for DC movies. And if this is the sign of things to come, then you know what, bring it on. But Robert Pattinson just did an amazing job with this. And the director, Matt Reeves, I've got so much to ask him, and I cannot wait to hear more of his interviews. Right now, I've been reading a lot and following his marketing campaign of this film. And it's clear that he is proud what he has made, of what his whole production crew and cast have created when it comes to the Batman. Now, I don't really like giving films stars or numbers out of 10 because it is always difficult to do so because it is your review. And that's why I always say when it comes to reviews, the most important one that you take away from it is your own. So do that. Go and watch this film. And when you do, drop me an email, drop me a message, talk to me about this film, because that is the one thing that you are going to want to do when you come out, is talk about this movie. You will be talking about this movie whilst queuing up to get tickets for the next screening, because watching this film once, it is not enough. So yeah, for me, 12 hours ago is when I pretty much got out of the screening of the Batman. And it's still fresh in my mind. The music I can hear in me. I can hear the punches. I can hear the kicks. I can hear the bullets coming off Batman's suit. I can hear... nearly said something that I shouldn't. But it's amazing. And I really, really enjoyed myself. It was cinema escapism. It's why I go to the cinema. It's why I turn off the phone and turn off all my devices when watching a film on TV or a TV show. It's why I go to the cinema, to be taken somewhere else. And whilst watching this movie from start to finish, I was in Gotham. I was a citizen of Gotham. I felt everything that was happening in that city. And my goodness, so much happens in that city. I'm going to be talking a lot more about this movie over the upcoming weeks, and whenever I can release this podcast, this review. But in that meantime, I'm going to write lots more notes. But this was just me jumping on and getting these words out, getting these thoughts out, letting me just babble on. A hot take, as it were. And I'm still excited. I'm still smiling. I'm still scared by some scenes. But I'm excited for the future, possibly, of this particular Batman universe. It is a different universe to what we've seen. And boy, the future of cinema is exciting as it always has been. And I'm excited for the future of this particular Batman. So well done to everybody involved. And I really hope you get to see it as soon as it comes out. And as I said, watch out for spoilers, because there are villains online, as it were. And these people will not be as mysterious as the Riddler. They will not put a teasing riddle online trying to give out clues as to what happens. They will just spoil it outright for you. It happens, sadly. That clout of wanting to be the first person to post something. So if you can, stay offline. Get your tickets, get in there, and be taken on this cinematic experience like you have possibly never seen before. Music, action, acting, storyline, characters, excitement, thrills, and cheers and screams and gasps. This film has it all. And I had a bloody amazing time whilst watching this. And it is a cinema experience that I will not be forgetting for a long time. I've not even drunk my tea. It's probably gone cold. Yep, that's cold tea. Whew. I'm Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel. You can find me online. Just search for The Geek of Steel, where probably by now there's lots more The Batman content. Pictures, merchandise, reviews. There is a lot of merchandise out there. I've seen some amazing things coming out of America. These popcorn buckets in the shape of the Batman cowl that I need. After falling in love with this new Batmobile, I need all those toys and the Lego and the Funkos and the t-shirts. Warner Brothers and DC Comics have put a lot of thought into the marketing of this movie. And I feel that goes to show that they've got faith in its final product. They've got faith in the actors and the crew. And as I just knocked over my little Batman, hello little Batman. This film, I really, really hope gets the praise that it requires. Yesterday, I think lots of films got nominated for awards this year. And it is my personal opinion that next year, when films get nominated, The Batman is going to get nominated for a lot of them as well. And who knows, it may even win them. The film certainly won me over, and Robert Pattinson has won me over as a brilliant Batman / Bruce Wayne. I think I've rambled for long enough. My throat's gone dry. One more thing though, Batman's voice, brilliant. Brilliant voice and brilliant language as well. You can find me online, just search for The Geek of Steel, and this face will pop up somewhere. You can listen to more episodes of the Podcast of Steel at thegeekofsteel.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So if you're listening, thank you for joining me. I hope you watch the film soon and enjoy it. Again, send me a message when you're done and we can talk about it safely without spoiling it. Please leave a review of this episode. It really does help. And if you're on YouTube, I'm waving at you again. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel. The Batman is released on March the 4th, and I will be there as soon as I can to watch it. Have a fantastic day, stay safe, and I will be back soon.